Astronauts prepare for the first spacewalk since helmet leak problem. Astronauts aboard the International Space Station prepare for an unexpected series of spacewalk by fabricating spacesuit snorkels they can use for breathing in case of another helmet water leak, NASA officials said on Wednesday. The spacewalks, the first of which is slated to begin at 7:10 a.m. on Saturday, are needed to replace one or two cooling pumps outside the 100 billion complex, which fills about 250 miles above Earth. U.S. spacewalks have been suspended since July after a spacesuit helmet worn by Italian astronaut Luca Paramitano filled with water, causing him to nearly drown. The underlying cause of the leaking remains under investigation, but engineers have learned enough to make modifications so the problem will not happen again, NASA managers told reporters during a conference call. I would be surprised if we have a problem with the suit, said the space station program manager Mike Saffredini. As a contingency, the spacewalkers' helmets will be outfilled with absorbed pads and homemade snorkels to funnel air from the body of the water-cooled suit into an astronaut's mouth if needed. The snorkels, which were fabricated by the crew on Sunday, are made from plastic water-line vent tubes used in the spacesuits. This is your last resort, said Alison Bolliger, lead spacewalk officer. If water is encroaching your face, similar to what happened to Luca, the crew member can lean down and use this to breathe. First-time spacewalk Michelle Hopkins will wear Paramitano's spacesuit, but it has been outfitted with a new fan-pumped Spectre, a device that circulates water and air and removes moisture from air. The fan-pumped Spectre from Paramitano suit was flown back to Earth for analysis, and engineers found tiny holes in the water spacer portion of the device were clogged. That allowed water to back up into the fan portion, get into a vent loop, and enter the helmet, said Space Station Flight Director Dina Cantel. Still unknown is how the water was contained. Unfortunately, it's a pretty complicated water chemistry problem, Cantel said. Saffredini said, we believe the lines we're using today are clean. We've put in new filters and we think the filter system works. A new fan-pumped Spectre is among the cargo aboard Orbital Science Corp's first supply ship to the station, which had been slated to launch this week. But it is being delayed until mid-July, so now it is delayed until mid-January, so NASA can tackle the higher priority work of getting the station cooling system back in operation. One of two ammonia cooling systems shut down on December 11th, forcing astronauts to turn off unnecessary equipment and suspend some science experiments. The U.S. side of the station has a second cooling system, but it cannot accommodate all the gears. Hawkins will be joined by six-time spacewalkers Ricky demonstration for 3 spacewalk to replace the fatal cooling system with a spare that is in storage outside the station. In addition to Saturday's 6.5-hour outing, spacewalkers are planning for Monday and Wednesday. Art octopus. What it's like to be a clever 8-armed creature. Imagine for a moment what it might be like to be an octopus. You're smart. You might even be able to use tools. But most of all, your brain cells are packed into your limbs. 8 infinitely flexible arms that seem to think for themselves. You're a loner. You seek contact only to mate. You also see only in shades of green. And despite your own color blindness, you can imitate an amazing breadth of colors, changing hue of your body in a fraction of a second. Perhaps it's that you can see with your skin. Your ability to vanish from predators is sometimes enhanced by a well-timed deployment of a cloud of dark ink. And you do all this without us. Though humans have been pondering this opus for centuries, it's still difficult for people to wrap their minds around octopus, the most intelligent invertebrates on Earth. To learn more about this marvelous life science, caught up with Carthen Harmon Coleridge, a freelance journalist and contributing editor for Scientific America, to talk about her new book, Octopus, the Most Mystery Creature in the Sea. The following Q&A has been added slightly for clarity and briefly. The life science, how did you get started writing about octopus? I was working as a reporter at Scientific American, and a study crossed my desk one day, saying that octopus had been observed using tools, and I kind of did a doubt take and thought, what? Octopus are invertebrates, and are they using hammers or building bicycles down there? So I read the study, and these researchers had observed these octopus that were collecting coconut shell haze. When they were feeling threatened or a little scared, it seems they would use these shells as shelter. They would take 2 of them and kind of snap them close and hide inside, and hold them shut with their suckers. The researchers suggested that this was an example of foresight, planning, and of these octopus thinking about materials in ways that we really won't expect it an invertebrate to do. The real clincher was that it came with this amazing video showing this pretty small octopus awkwardly carrying these unwieldy coconut shell haze and then hiding inside when they were started by the researchers who were filming them. I just realized that this animal had such more to offer. I had no idea how cool they are. What makes octopus so good at outflagging themselves? We still don't know exactly how they perceive their environment. Studies have shown that their eyes seem to be colorblind, and so we weren't sure exactly how they can pick up on these really subtle colors in their environment to so successfully camouflage against them. Current research suggests they might actually be able to see with their skin. They have these light sense cells in their skin, and so perhaps they picking up color that way and just doing it super locally. And then their skins is filled with these little pigment-filled sacs called cheiromatophores, and these can expand and contract and change the overall color and pattern on the octopus skin. I was really fascinated to learn that when octopus use camouflage, they don't exactly mimic the object they were trying to blend in with. Why is that? A study came out recently showing that instead of taking an overall environmental snapshot and arranging it to disappear with a general lift pattern, as we might think of camouflage on land, they are in fact camouflaging themselves to look like a specific object in the environment, which actually solves a lot of problems of camouflage. If something is generally camouflaged, it might disappear from 100 meters away, but from much closer or at a different angle, it could be immediately obvious. That's why octopus can camouflage looking like a plant or a rock or a shell or something else on a coral reef rather than the entire coral reef itself. Personally, probably the creepiest thing about the octopus is their eyes, which look somewhat similar to ours, even though, as you write, the last common ancestor of octopus and human was likely a sightless worm that dates back to 500 million years ago. Even though, as you write, the last common ancestor of octopus and human was likely a sightless worm that dates back to 500 million years ago. It's just incredible that somehow, given our really different evolutionary paths, we've ended up with such similar land spaces eyes that can focus and really are extremely attentive to motion. I think it speaks to some of these really basic genetic underpinnings that we, whether we would like to admit it or not, share with octopus. Another interesting commonality is that a study a few years ago showed that octopus, if they are trying to perform really exact movements, they'll turn their arms almost into a joint arm. They will pretend like they have those solid joints and make their arms into more stiff segments, kind of like our own. They call it an octopus making an elbow. Speaking of their arms, you wrote about how they can act independently of the octopus' central brain. How does that work? That's another thing we're still figuring out. About 2/3 of all their neurons are distributed in their arms, whereas we have most of our neurons in our brain, which is definitely the executive controller of our body, the CPU, if you will. The octopus, as one researcher put it to me, has something more like the internet, more like a cloud-based intelligence system. We're still figuring out how some of the decision making in terms of movement and problem solving might actually be made in their arms without their central brain being aware of it. Research right now is clinging to the fact that they probably just send their arms a general directive, say, arm, go catch this crab, and then the arm will work both together and independently to make sure that happens. This allows the octopus not to be bogged down, or at least not have its central brain bogged down, with trying to control 8 incredibly flexible, sensitive arms. Octopuses are quite anticial, but they do come together briefly to mate. How exact do they mate? They have a couple of different stages, and it seems to depend on the species. In one, it's hard to call it traditional, I guess. Males have a specialized arm they use for mating. They can send spermatophores, the little packets of sperm and genetic material, down the special arm, and they can insert it into the female mental through her fernal. Some species, they don't seem to like this closeness, possibly because a lot of octopus are actually cannibalistic. Perhaps the safer sex strategy of the octopus is the male will actually detach that arm and give it all over to the female, and then she can take it and use it pretty much whenever she's ready to lay her eggs. That use in a lot of species where there's a big size difference between the male and the female. There are some octopus where the female can be close to 6 feet long, and the male is the size of a walnut, so this poor little guy isn't gonna risk getting too close for too long. Besides other octopus, what do they eat? They seem to eat just about anything, and some individual octopus do seem to have a taste preference for different foods, but in general, their primary favorite foods seem to be crabs and other shelled mollusks like clams and mussels, which is pretty impressive because those aren't easy. Because those aren't even easy for us to open with all of our myriad tools. But the octopus are so strong, they can usually tear the shells open or break into them with their breakers, which is really sharp, and then suck out their dinner. You talked to several researchers who are building robots or materials inspired by octopus. What makes this animal such a good model? There's this huge challenge of trying to build a soft-body robot, which might not sound like a big challenge until you consider how locked down we've been in this really rigid robotic world with joints and hard components. There's this huge undertaking of trying to make absurdly everything in that robot soft. So like an octopus, it could squeeze into small place, which would be really useful for search and rescue or just exploration. From the materials standpoint, A lot of researchers are trying to mimic their camouflage ability, applying a lot of nanotechnology and trying to develop material that, like an octopus, can both sense the color and the light condition around it, and then instantly mimic that or send that signal back out. That could obviously be used in the military for light and color, but also for things like radar and sonar. So instead of just disappearing under the sonar signal, the material could actually become invisible and by emitting the sonar. Besides the fact that octopuses are not called octopi, what do you think is the biggest misconception about the animal? I think a lot of people still have this image in their minds of the kraken, the huge, mysterious monstrous sea beast. These are definitely some huge squids that live out in the ocean that conceivably, if they wanted to, could probably take out a small boat. But octopus do not really get that big to be a threat to any kind of sea craft. And also, there are not generally malicious. There are a lot of stories of drivers who have an octopus take off their mask or their respirator, which is obviously dangerous, but usually the octopus is just curious. It's just checking out this other animal that enters its area. Do scientists know how many octopuses there are, or if they face a threat in their environment like global warming? One of the really cold adaptations is their blood. Instead of being iron-based like our blood, it's copper-based, which makes them have blue blood, which is really awesome. But the downside to that is that they become really sensitive to pH changes. So with climate change and ocean acidification, they could be in some serious danger. The big challenge to octopus study in the wild is that we have no idea how many octopuses are out there. They're just almost impossible to count and track. For school of fish like cod or tuna, you can cast a wide net. You can even tag some of them. But octopus will not be tagged. They will take out just about any radio transmitter you try to put in or on them. And they are so solitary, as you mentioned. They just kind of hide in these little things and creeps on the bottom of the ocean by themselves. So you can't really catch a school of octopus and figure out how old they are and what the pollution dynamics are. We have really had a guess to estimate what population might be, mostly based on fishery catches, to see if people in areas are bringing in as many octopus as they have in the past. Whew. How do we know that octopus were like in the past? The oldest octopus fossil we have in almost 300 million years ago. So these guys are older than T-Rex, older than dinosaurs. But we have a really poor fossil record of them, because obviously having no bones, they don't fossilize very well. One of the researchers I spoke to studied these fossils, and she just said it's a matter of finding really subtle octopus-shaped stains on a rock, which can be super challenging. You just have to know good places to look. Non-octopus fossils don't show a lot of evolutionary change, so we are just trying to figure out exactly, for example, when the ink sac developed and basic developments of anatomy like that. I love how your book mentioned the octopus that showed up again and again in sci-fi. Do you have a favorite fiction octopus or octopus-like character? I was so amazed by Dr. Octopus, one of the Spider-Man foes in the Marvel Universe. When I was researching the book, I haven't been a huge comic book follower, but it was just incredibly how many details that the creator of this character got right. I don't know if they put in the research of it, if it was just a lot of lucky guess, but he was super smart. He had independent control of his arms, and just the little details that he just a little bit me pick. We have only recently learned that octopus don't see very well into the distance. This Christmas, gather around your relatives and make their Facebook profile more secure by enabling disabling this setting on Facebook. Well, our guide won't protect you from your uncle's political runs. It may make his account fairer, safer, and more private. David Podge, what I bought this year. Almost everything I buy, electronic-wise, is something I fell in love with while reviewing it, and this list representing everything I bought, and thus fell in love with it. These are the cream on the crop, the gadgets I paid for and use on a regular basis. If it's of any assistance in your holiday shopping, here's the list. What I actually bought with my actual own money in the actual year 2013. 2012 was already a pretty good year for technology. What happened in 2013 will blow you away. Upworthy isn't the only website with uplifting stories paired with overrated headlines. This year, we asked Yahoo Tech writers to share about they were thankful for in the technology world for 2013. Then we took all of their response, wrote sentence long Facebook shareable headlines for them, and collected them all into a single web page. You won't believe what happens next. Dang Tainan, last-minute Christmas gift that your family won't hate. From bases to baby boomers, here are gift suggestions for all the procrastinators out there. There's not much time left to go your Christmas shopping done, but you can still find some great treasure on various online storefronts. So skip the shopping mall. You don't need that Cinnabon anyway, and click your way to success gift giving season with Dan Tyan's time guide.